comic book fans, welcome to another exciting edition of Cammy's Comic Corner. I'm your host as always, Cammy. Now we have such a great batch of comics that came out this week, so I'm so excited. Let's get right into it. The pick of the week from DC, we have Detective Comics 881, written by Scott Snyder and art by Jock and Francesco Francavilla. Now, everything that you ever learned from Scott Snyder's run has something to do with this finale, this grand finale. He just placed little seeds all throughout, ever since the start. Everything from like the birds to the auction house, underground auction house, to just everything just ties together so perfectly in this final issue that it just blows your mind. It completely blows your mind. You don't know how he is such a it's almost like he reminds me of Hickman a little, Jonathan Hickman, where you think you don't take notice of anything, all the small stuff, until the very end when everything just makes sense, when you see it as the big picture. But basically, we have James kidnaps his own sister Barbara, and it's Jim Gordon and Batman scurrying to try to find him and try to find out, where he might have taken her in Gotham. And James discusses how he knew that Barbara knew from the beginning about he was different, and she saw through him, as it were. And so he kind of does this old little monologuing thing. Only it's just so fucked up that he has two knives in Barbara's legs, and he like shows them to her, and it's just like little twists and turns like that really woke you up and made you go, holy shit. And then you have Jock and Francesco Francavilla just dueling on art duties, and it just looks gorgeous. How Scott Snyder is so fortunate to get all these writers, or all these artists that he gets to just play with, it's just mind-boggling. Like, I would just be so sick if I was another writer going, how come he gets these guys and I get Joe Blow over here? Like, he can have the whole pick of the litter. What about me? But finally, at the end, Barbara tries to escape, but just in time Batman gets there to help out. One of the things that really made me smile was James discussed this to Batman, how he knew that Dick Grayson was Batman, because when he came back, Batman did, he was smiling all the time. And he knew that Dick was a smiler, like it had to be Dick. And also, if he killed Barbara and then killed his father, Jim Gordon, the real Batman wouldn't care. He'd go off and keep being Batman. Dick cares for people too much, so he would probably give up the whole mantle. But he has a nice little rendezvous with his dad at the end. His dad says, you're not going to get off the hook that easily. We're going to get you help once more. You don't get to have the sweet release of death, as it were. But it was just such a mind-boggling issue. This whole thing, I can't wait for it to be collected into like the Snyder Omnibus, or however you want to label it, DC. But this is what Batman's all about. If you were kind of, ooh, to the Grant Morrison stuff, you should have been reading Scott Snyder's run. It's just fantastic. Hands down, this issue could be a contender for issue of the year. I'm just putting it out there. It was so great. Now, onto the Fast Five. First up from Dark Horse, we have Baltimore, The Cursed Bells #1. Now, I'm once again in love with this title because you have Ben Stenbeck on art. Yes, Christopher Golden and Mike Mignola do a great job of story as usual, but it's just Stenbeck's art is what really, Stenbeck's art colored by Dave Stewart. It's what really gives that eye candy. You have Lord Baltimore once again looking for the vampire known as Haggis. He is told by these two little villagers that in this one village there's a lot of slaughtering going on, and sure enough, he is led into an ambush by these two kids. After he takes care of a room full of vampires in an enchanted forest, he goes, okay, now kids, listen up. Where is he really? And then he is attracted to this little town in Austria, where there are some rumors circulating that, vampirism is still around and the plague, but these nuns have been rising from the dead. And so the so-called vampire expert kind of shows him where this figure that might be Haggis is staying. It's in kind of a castle, almost, with these bells that I'm assuming are cursed, or they curse you when they're rung. Who knows? But it was a great first issue, loving the art, and that's all that you need when you're reading comic books nowadays, right? It's just gorgeous, gorgeous art. Okay, well, story does help too, I guess. Next up from Marvel, we have Fear Itself #5. Now, a lot of things are happening in this issue, and that's what I really love about it. That and Stuart Immonen's art, because, again, I'm kind of an art guy like that. We have Thor versus the Hulk and the Thing, but they're possessed by the Norse demon gods or the serpents, followers or whatever. Then you have Sin versus Captain America, which doesn't look good for Cap. And then you also have Tony Stark getting an audience with Odin, and he says, Odin, no, I don't want your help. I just want access to your workshop, your armory, so I can make weapons of my own, so we can actually have a chance against the Serpent here. The Serpent has risen. He goes to Sin, his daughter, quote-unquote, and says, you've done a great job. The Avengers try to assemble and take him down, but just one hit with his hammer, and everything's demolished. He goes off to go conquer the world, but Thor is able to take care of the Thing by having Mjolnir come through him. But luckily, Franklin and Valerie are able to save the Thing, and now he's back to his regular self. But with the whole battle between Hulk and Thor, because it's always been an epic battle between the two, Hulk gets launched out into space, he comes falling back down to Earth, and he'll be taken on Dracula, it looks like, in a miniseries. But we have Thor just completely, bam! He's done, he's spent. Now it's going to be interesting to see what happens next issue, but it was a lot of action and story in this issue, and that's what I really liked. The last 4 issues haven't been really doing it for me as much. This issue in particular was a home run, I think. Good stuff. Next up from Vertigo, we have American Vampire Survival of the Fittest, #3. Scott Snyder is on fire this week, let me just say. So we have the 77th Brigade of Vampires checking out this this presentation by Dr. Pavel, and he shows that different races of vampires are susceptible to different forms of UV radiation, and so he goes down the list saying which vampire species, how you can defeat them with what kind of UV strain. So he has this big old gas gun. They even show that he even asked Cashel to demonstrate by shooting each a vampire in a cage. At one point, though, one of the vampires in particular, subspecies, reminds Cashel of his own boy back at the laboratory there, and so he can't pull the trigger, but the gal does because she has no problem doing so. But the Carpathian vampire species are like the dominant species of vampire, and that's why they're in bed with the Nazis, because like, listen, you guys want white power and blonde hair, blue eyes, that's great. We just want the Carpathian vampire species to rule Earth. So let's go hand in hand. But knowing vampires, I'm sure there's something up their sleeves. But basically, Cash and his gal are done of waiting, so they're going to go rescue the Doctor and get the hell out of there. Doctor says, no, the real weapon is down in these catacombs along this river here. We're going to wake up the oldest, most powerful vampires in existence, and they'll take care of them for us. So it's a cool little twist ending, because these gigantic vampires that are like frozen or asleep in this cave, this cavern, they're about to be woken up, and they're like, hey, no, we're the dominant species, biatch. Sean Murphy's art on this was just breathtaking. It was fantastic. This American Vampires series and then the Survival of the Fittest, I hope we get more miniseries like this, because they are just so damn entertaining, and something tells me everything's going to come wrap up in the main series as well, along with this some of the events going on in this one. Good stuff. Next up from Marvel, we have PunisherMAX #16. Now we get the story of what happened in the park that day when Frank took his family for a picnic. He's killing himself, beating himself up, because if he would have told her, his wife, this information a day earlier, they would all still be alive. But basically, he tells them during the picnic, I want a divorce, I'm going to leave you and the children, I just can't handle this sort of life. And before she can even go off on him, saying how much of a bastard he is, that's when the first bullet goes through her chest, and then he watches his whole family get killed around him. But then we go back to the present day, where the grenade was tossed in his cell, and he decides, no, this is my punishment. I got to keep on living and taking care of crime. This is my lot in life. And he puts the grenade in the toilet and gets out of there, and he takes on Big Jesus. But Big Jesus doesn't want to kill Frank. He says, no. See, my brother was fucked over by the Kingpin, and you're the only person who's able to take a swipe at him, because I'm in here for the rest of my life, so we're going to help you get out. And Frank kind of shows mercy as he kills Big Jesus, because he's like, listen, a life in prison isn't a life at all. I'm doing him a favor. But now he returns home, and his real home, the one that his wife and kids used to live at. And now he's going to try to get back on his feet. And it's going to be interesting to see him, now that he's hit rock bottom, rise his way to the top and take on and kill the Kingpin once and for all. But it was a great issue. This crib team should never leave for whatever reason. Dylan and Aaron all the way. And finally this week from Dark Horse, we have Hellboy the Fury #3. The final end to this epic miniseries. We have Nemu the dragon fighting Hellboy still. It looks like Nemu might have the upper hand at one point, as she's like crushing Hellboy underneath her foot. but Hellboy's spirit friends, you know, there's some sort of magic in the air, help give him the sword that he needs to take on the dragon and win. He slices, he dices, he stabs and stabs and stabs until she is finally dead and dying and then completely obliterated. But because of this, Nemu can feel the 500 drowned witches on her heels, bringing her down. But she goes, listen, if I'm going down to hell, Hellboy, you're going with me. Takes out his heart right in front of him and then takes it down to hell with her, causing Ragnarok no longer to happen because thanks to Hellboy it was prevented. But now London and the world have to start rebuilding again because we were this close to getting Ragnarok. And now the next miniseries is going to be Hellboy in Hell. So hopefully it'll be better than Jason Goes to Hell. And we'll get to see some more action. But it's going to be so sad to see Duncan Fegredo go because I've been loving his art. But, you know, we can give someone else a chance, I guess. But it's just like, do we really have to? Fegredo was doing such a spectacular job. So it was a great ending, a great end to a creative team as well. Can't wait to see what happens next. And that does it this week for Cammy's Comic Corner. If you want more Cammy's Comic Corner goodness, check out www.cammyscomiccorner.com. Every Sunday you get the weekly video review shows, well, for 2 more episodes. And then every Wednesday you get the audio show Geeky Talkie. And then at the start of the month you get the Book of the Month selection. At the end of the month, the Top Shelf selection. And then every Friday you get my favorite covers that came out that week. And I love blogging about that. You can check that out on The Furnace as well. That comes out every Friday. So that does it this week for Cammy's Comic Corner. I have been your host, Cammy. Now remember, people, 2 more issues left of this episode of the video reviews. If that makes any sense, I'm sorry, I'm a little tired. But this has been Cammy's Comic Corner. I've been your host, Cammy. I bid you a farewell.